Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial on IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. My name is Angel Amayo. The purpose of this series of videos is to prepare you for IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. In IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, the task is to write a report on some kind of visual data. This task is presented to you followed by an instruction to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. And you are then asked to make comparisons where relevant. You are advised to spend 20 minutes on this task and write at least 150 words. Here is an example provided by the British Council, which we are going to learn from together in this video. In your writing response to the task instruction, there are 3 important points that you must include in your report. You must not leave them out. They are the points that your examiner will be looking for in your report. The first is a paraphrase of the task presentation or description in your opening or introductory paragraph. This is the first sentence that you write. In this first sentence, you show your understanding of the task by reformulating it in your own words, changing only some of the words. The second element required in Academic Writing Task 1 is an overview statement that states the most significant feature of the diagram in comparison with the other features that it has. This overview sentence is expected to be a comparison sentence, a sentence that compares, usually containing comparison indicators such as more than or comparative adjectives. And finally, you need to provide details such as figures, that is, numbers that support the overview statement in your subsequent paragraphs. The important figures are those that indicate the beginning, the peak, and the end of the period or process that the diagram represents. You should report the figures in descending order, starting from the greatest or highest number to the smallest or lowest. In the next clip, we shall look at an example response to our sample task provided by the British Council. Welcome back. Everything you see on your screen right now, namely the text on the left and the diagrams on the right, is an example of IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. As I mentioned in the previous clip, in Academic Writing Task 1, the task is presented to you with an instruction included that you should summarize the information and make comparisons where relevant. Now, starting from top left of your screen, the first piece of text is just a piece of advice. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The next chunk of text is a description of the 2 diagrams on the right. It says, the charts below show the results of a survey of the primary exercise objectives and locations of a selected group of adults between 20 and 50 years of age. This is the sentence that you should paraphrase. It is rightly a compound sentence containing 2 clauses because it has to refer to the 2 diagrams at once, where the first is a bar chart that illustrates the findings of a study of the major reasons why some adults in 20 to 50 age group did exercise, while the other, a pie chart, represents the venues where they took the exercise. If you listened carefully to the statement that I have just made, you would find that it contains an example of the very first element, a paraphrase. It reformulates the subject matter of the task using different words, which I pointed out in the previous clip, must be included as the first sentence in your response in this task. In other words, I just did a paraphrase of the topic. Let me repeat the paraphrase statement. The bar chart illustrates the findings of a study of the major reasons why some adults in 20 to 50 age group did exercise, while the other, a pie chart, represents the venue where they took the exercise. You can pause the video to take note of the changes that are taking place in the paraphrase. Let us now take a look at the instruction next. It says, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. This is a single instruction that contains 3 steps. The instruction is that you should summarize the information. It is actually the only instruction. Just summarize. But to do so, it says that you should first do a selection of the main features and then write a report on the main features. In other words, report the main features. And finally, it says that you should make comparisons where relevant. This means that if you find any set of 2 or more features that have a basis for comparison, then draw the comparisons in your writing. Now, you might want to ask, how can I recognize a basis for comparison? The answer to that question is, to identify any basis for comparison, look out for similarities and differences. The biggest difference or differences or changes that are shown to have occurred over time often become the most significant features represented by numbers in the diagram or in the stages of a process in the case of process diagrams. As you have identified, after you have identified the similar features and the biggest difference or differences or changes, you then put them side by side or express them side by side in a single comparative sentence, which becomes your overview statement. For instance, here is an example overview statement provided by the British Council for the 2 charts before us. It says, in general, more of the people in the survey exercised for recreation than for other purposes, and gymnasiums were the most preferred setting. Now, how is this a comparative sentence? To answer that question, first, I would like to mention once again, I did so earlier, that the sentence is a compound sentence. This means that it has 2 clauses. The first clause is, more of the people in the survey exercised for recreation than for other purposes, which stands for the bar chart and which can stand alone. The second clause is, and gymnasiums were the most preferred setting, which represents the pie chart and which can stand alone as well. The point I'm making here is that each of the 2 clauses in the compound sentence is a comparative clause, which can stand alone as a comparative sentence. Each of them is comparative because they contain comparison indicators such as more than. In the first one, it says more of the people in the survey exercised for recreation than for other purposes. And the superlative comparison indicator, the most, in the second clause. It says gymnasiums were the most preferred setting. If the bar chart were the only diagram, the overview statement would have been a simple sentence such as, in general, more of the people in the survey exercised for recreation than for other purposes. And it would have ended there. And if the pie chart were the only diagram, the overview statement would have been a simple sentence as well, such as, in general, gymnasiums were the most preferred setting in the survey, and it would have ended there. But because there are 2 diagrams, The two comparative clauses, each of which can stand alone as a simple sentence, have to come together as a compound sentence to form the overview statement of both charts, which says, in general, more of the people in the survey exercise for recreation than for other purposes, and gymnasiums were the most preferred setting. All right, so much for that. You can watch this video multiple times to fully comprehend all the information provided here on this topic. It is really loaded, isn't it? You can tell me if it is. Drop a comment. The last piece of text on the bottom of your screen gives the word count requirement. It says, write at least 150 words. You can write more, but not less. And that is not something to worry about if you are aware, as you now do, of the elements that you must include in your report. Finally, let us look at the model response to this task as provided by the British Council in the next clip. In this clip, we will see how all the pieces come together to produce a Band 9 response to Academic Writing Task 1. The pieces that I talk about are the paraphrase of the task description, the overview statement, and the subsequent paragraphs that should hold the details. Now, let us look at the task once again. Here is the task description followed by the instruction. The description says, the charts below show the results of a survey of the primary exercise objectives and locations of a selected group of adults between 20 and 50 years of age. This is what you should paraphrase. This description. It is the very first sentence that you write, and here is a paraphrase provided by the British Council. It says, the chart gives information about the main reasons for exercise for a group of adults from 20 to 50 years old, and the pie chart shows the locations where they exercised. When writing your paraphrase, make sure you do not alter the meaning. You can pause the video to compare this paraphrase with the original text and see how every bit of the meaning of the original is retained in it. The next sentence that you need to write is your overview statement, which is a summary sentence in response to the instruction that says summarize. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. As I stated in the previous clip, this is a single instruction that contains 3 steps. The first step is that you should select the main features. The second step is that you should write a report on them. And the third is that you should make comparisons where relevant. To select the main features, choose the numbers that represent the biggest growth, trend, or change, and use the figure to formulate a statement of comparison against the other numbers. This statement of comparison becomes your overview statement. Note that your overview statement is the same thing as your summary statement. The example before us says, in general, more of the people in the survey exercised for recreation than for other purposes, and gymnasiums were the most preferred setting. What do we learn from this? You should start your overview statement with the phrase in general, which tells the reader that you are about to make a general statement that covers the whole subject, which is a summary. Another word that you can use is the word overall, which is exactly synonymous with in general. The next element of this overview statement is the part that says more people in the survey, which stands for the biggest number in the bar chart. The number of people that exercised for recreation, which is the tallest bar in the bar chart, and which becomes the basis for comparison against the remaining 4 bars, expressed as than for other purposes. Notice that specific numbers are not mentioned in an overview statement. For instance, even though it is known that the biggest number in the bar chart is 40%, it is not mentioned until the subsequent paragraph. And even though we know the numbers that other purposes stand for, such as 25% or a quarter for muscle toning, around 15% for disease prevention, about 10% for weight loss, and 10% for mood improvement, these figures are not mentioned here in the overview statement because an overview statement is a general statement which should not contain specific details. The same procedure is followed to produce the second clause of this overview statement, which says gymnasiums were the most preferred setting, and which represents the pie chart. Let me ask you a question here. What number represents gymnasiums in the pie chart? Oh, I can hear you say 35%. That's right. Which is the single greatest number of all, right? Yes. This number stands apart from the others, doesn't it? Sure. It represents the most significant feature in the pie chart. It therefore should become the basis for comparison with the others. And so when the clause eventually reads, gymnasiums were the most preferred setting, without mentioning the others, such as 20% for parks and 15% each for playgrounds, public sports, and other public places, it is because it is the most significant figure. Now, take a moment to observe that both the paraphrase and the overview statement belong together in the introductory paragraph. Do not separate them in different paragraphs. Next, specific details that support the overview statement are given in subsequent paragraphs. And in the case of this task, it makes sense that each chart should have its own paragraph. In the next paragraph, after the introductory paragraph, you have the paragraph for the bar chart. Now, the paragraph for the bar chart has 3 sentences. The first 2 sentences are comparative sentences in keeping with the task instruction that says that you should make comparisons where relevant. The first one says 40% of the selected group regarded exercise mainly as a form of recreation, while a quarter of them worked out primarily to tone their muscles. We know that this is a comparative sentence because of the conjunction while that is used to introduce comparative clauses. You can see that the word while is also used to introduce the comparative clause of the second sentence of the bar chart paragraph. It says almost 15% exercised mainly to avoid illness, while, you can see that again, while around 10% of the survey participants wanted to lose weight. Finally, the pie chart paragraph has a single complex sentence with 3 comparative clauses in it. Now, as you look at the paragraph, you can see that inside it, of course, it has 3 comparative clauses, where one is introduced with more than, the remaining 2 are introduced with while. It says more than a third of the people surveyed used a gymnasium, while the rest of the group frequented public places, with 20% using parks for keeping fit, while playgrounds public sports grounds and other public places were favored by the remaining 45%, equally distributed at 15% each. Now, to conclude, the observations that we have made so far about the paraphrase, about the need for your overview sentence to be a general statement of comparison of the main features, and our observation that specific details are given only in subsequent paragraphs using comparative sentences, are all examples for you to imitate in your own writing on such diagrams as bar charts, pie charts, line graphs, tables, process diagrams, and maps in IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. We shall take a further look at specific examples of each of these in my future videos on this IELTS task. For now, thank you for watching this. I will see you in the next one.